uproar today over this image of President Trump dressed as the next pope.
Him tweeting out an AI-created image of him posing as the Pope is disrespectful, it is frankly disgusting, and it is outrageous.
But the president is brushing off the controversy.
Does it at all diminish the substance of the official White House account to have it go out on camera?
I'm not Catholic. I'm not religious. I'm Drew. Now, once again, I'm going to stress this. I am not here mocking anybody's faith. I'm not making fun of anybody. I am literally just trying to learn, trying to laugh, and trying to put a smile on a few people's faces. And if I can learn about the Pope while doing so, even better. So, a lot of these things are going to be questions that you probably didn't want to ask your priest, your bishop, your cardinal. I learned about those. So let's get started. What is the Pope really? So the way that I learned, or the way that it's kind of being taught to me right now, is the Pope is kind of like the CEO of the Catholics. And if you don't like that comparison, I'm sorry. It's just what we're going to go with today. He's like the CEO of the Catholic Church Corporation, aka the Triple C's. Not Rick Ross, though. Oof. Now, he doesn't know every employee in his corporation, but he does set the big rules for every employee. He also is going to hire all the good management, the cardinals, the bishops, and we'll talk a little bit about them later. They're not birds. They're not birds. He's also going to make sure that everybody follows the same rules and has the same company values. Now, if there's any confusion about those rules, he's going to make the final call. He's also known as the Bishop of Rome and the head of the worldwide Catholic Church. So, pretty important. Imagine your family tree. It goes way back, right? Like grandparents, great-grandparents, people with old names like Jethro and Jedediah and George and Abraham. Those are presidents. I don't know why I went them, but you know what I'm talking about. Now, eventually, you're going to get to your ancestor who crossed the ocean, because at one point, we were all immigrants, am I right? Except for you natives out there. Love y'all. Now, the Catholic Church, they have a version of that too, but just for popes. All right? It's called the apostolic succession. And I'm going to say that again. Apostolic succession. Now, in simpler terms, St. Peter, the OG Pope, he was one of Jesus' best friends, and he was given the keys to lead. You know what's kind of cool about him? He was just a regular fisherman. He wasn't even that religious at the time. But since him, every pope has followed that same exact history and same exact values, part of an unbroken chain. Kind of like handing down a family recipe, but exactly as it was written. No changes. For 2,000 years. It's insane. Apostolic succession really means that the Pope, he didn't just get hired, all right? He's kind of a part of a spiritual relay race. Now, each Pope is going to hand the baton to the next Pope, and the next Pope, and the next Pope, and that goes all the way back to St. Peter. 2,000 years. Now, this is why Catholics believe that the Pope's authority has ancient and direct roots. It's not just a random vote or popularity contest. It dates all the way back to the founder, Jesus. The Pope also has this thing called papal infallibility. Now, it's kind of like a superpower, but bear with me here a little bit. Now, not like Superman, he doesn't have this power all the time. He doesn't just wake up every day with it on. He kind of only activates it when he's doing something very specific, like teaching officially about faith and morals. He doesn't have it when he's like, watching soccer or ordering room service or, I don't know, posting a selfie in the Pope Mobile. Oh yeah, There's a Pope mobile. We'll get to it. I got a few pictures too. It's only when he's in official mode. Okay? And honestly, there's a name for official mode in the Pope world. It's called ex cathedra. Now, ex cathedra, that's Latin. And in Latin, what it means is from the chair, which is kind of cool in my opinion. No, that means there's a chair out there. In church talk, though, the chair is a symbol. It really just means that he's speaking with maximum authority. It's kind of like when your dad says, "Because I said so." You just accept it, right? You don't say, "That don't make sense." You just say, "Accept it." Is there actually a chair? There is. But it's kind of more symbolic than functional. Now, the term literally does mean from the chair. And in ancient time, a teacher's chair, it kind of just meant authority, right? Does that make sense? So in the Catholic Church, the chair of St. Peter, it represents the Pope's authority as the successor to St. Peter. While there is a physical chair of St. Peter, it's in Vatican City, but it's more of a kind of revered symbol than actual seat that the Pope's going to sit in, right? Now, I know what you're saying. When has he actually used this ex cathedra? Does he use it all the time? Does he use it once or twice a year? Does he use it whenever? Now, it's only been used twice. Twice. What happened was in 1854, and that was for the Immaculate Conception. That was basically saying that Mary was born without sin, right? And in 1950, they had another one called the Assumption of Mary. And this meant that Mary was taken into heaven body and soul, which was a very debated subject back then, which, like I said, as an ignorant religious person, I just say, why don't I just say she did, right? But like I said, 2 times in 150 years. It's crazy. Now, an important clarification about papal infallibility, it doesn't mean he's always right about everything, all right? That'd be crazy. The Pope can be wrong about sports, he can be wrong about politics, he can be wrong about what shows to binge next. Now, infallibility, though, that means he can't be wrong about official teachings on faith and morals when he declares it ex cathedra or from the chair. So if the Pope says pineapple belongs on pizza, that's just an opinion. It's not a doctrine, even though he's right. Now, I said earlier that papal infallibility has been around for about 150 years. And you probably thought, I thought you said the Pope's been around for 2,000 years. And that's true. The Pope has been around for 2,000 years. The first Pope, St. Peter, was one of Jesus' apostles. Now, papal infallibility, however, was only formally defined in 1870 during the First Vatican Council. Now, this means that while the role of the Pope has been around for centuries, the teachings that the Pope is infallible under were only officially articulated in the 19th century. So, new rules for an old job, kind of. That was a lot, right? So, basically putting it all together and summarizing what I just said, ex cathedra is going to be when the Pope speaks from the chair, all right? Making every official declaration he says from the chair official on faith and morals. Now, papal infallibility. Now, that's the belief that whatever the Pope says is mistake-free, but not because of the Pope's personality, more because of God's intervention in choosing the Pope. While the Pope dates back to St. Peter, it wasn't officially defined as infallible position until 1870, so a little bit more recent. Can I just put my resume into Indeed, type in Pope, and say, hey, I want to be the Pope? No, not at all. We'll get into it, the qualifications, a little later, but right now let's kind of get into how does one actually become the Pope, okay? The Cardinals, not the bird, not the football team, and not the baseball team. Think of the Cardinals like the Pope's version of a board of directors. Now, like I said, they're not actual birds. That would be kind of funny though, right? Little holy birds, you know what I'm saying? They're actually just high-ranking church leaders that are handpicked by previous popes. How do you become a cardinal? Well, first, you kind of got to be a Catholic priest first. And then you got to be a bishop. and then you get promoted because the Pope thinks you're doing pretty good. It's kind of like going from freshman year to JV to varsity to the big leagues, right? Cardinals be girls. The birds, yeah. For the church, there are no female cardinals. But we can dream, right? Now, who's the highest ranking cardinal? That's going to be the dean of the College of Cardinals. He's kind of like the Dumbledore of Catholic Hogwarts. But just because he's the top cardinal doesn't mean he's going to become pope. It's a vote, not a promotion. Now, a cardinal, like we talked about earlier, they're like a VIP bishop, right? They also get a vote for the pope, though. Now, most cardinals are bishops, but not all bishops are cardinals. You follow me? The pope, now he personally chooses cardinals, usually because they've done big things for the church. Bishop is like the regional manager of Apple. They're going to run the store in a certain area. Now, the cardinal, he's like Tim Cook's inner circle. He runs stuff too, but he's also kind of more important for picking out the next CEO when Tim Cook's gone. Now, I'm not saying Tim Cook's the Pope, but Apple does kind of run the world. We're getting off track. So if you're a bishop and the Pope really likes your work, he might say, okay, nice. You're a cardinal now. Here's your red hat. Here, please help to choose the next me when I die. Something like that. And speaking of die, rest in peace, Pope Francis. What happens when Pope Francis died? Well, the Vatican doesn't just jump right into voting mode, okay? First, the Pope is laid out for public viewing, usually for about 3 to 5 days. Now, the body lies in state so that people can come. They can come pay respects. There's usually a long line. People will fly in from different countries. It's a lot of emotions and a lot of incense. There's usually about a 9-day mourning period. It's kind of like a spiritual cool down before the next pope is picked. Just give them a little bit of time, a little bit of grieving time. Now, Pope funerals, beautiful, slow, and filled with rituals. The cardinals are all in red robes. There's a massive choir all singing Latin hymns. The Pope's coffin is usually triple layered with wood, lead, and even more wood. It's kind of like those nesting dolls back in the day where you just open up and one comes out, one more comes out. Where are they buried at? Most popes are going to be buried in the Vatican grottos. I know what you're saying. Stop with all this facts and all these let's hear some weird stuff. All right, you want to hear some weird stuff? All right, like Pope John in 964 reportedly died of a stroke during inappropriate actions. I'm gonna leave that one to your imagination. Pope Adrian, 1159, the only English pope. People think that he may have choked to death on a fly that flew into his wine. Now, if that's not irony, I don't know what is. And Pope Formosus, we're going to get him a little bit later. He was exhumed or dug up and put on trial after he died. And yes, they had a body in the chair, standing trial. Now, I'm going to go back to episode 1 where we talk about court. There ain't not a single mention of dead bodies in that entire episode. All right. Now, you don't have to die to not be pope, right? It's not a till death do us part type of situation. A lot of times it is, because only a handful of popes have retired. Most of them die in office. Now, Pope Benedict, he retired in 2013. I remember that. He said he no longer had the strength to serve, which is very admirable. And he was the first pope to retire in almost 600 years. And when he retired, he got a new title, Pope Emeritus. And he got to live in the Vatican gardens till he passed away. Now, kind of funny thing, the Vatican had to figure out what a retired pope would wear and where he would live and who gets dibs on a pope-mobile. Spoiler, nobody gets dibs on a pope-mobile. You can't own the pope-mobile. The pope-mobile owns you. We got the weird. We had the retirements. Now, I'm going to give you a few little sad facts here because while being the pope does have a lot of, conspiracies and all that fun behind-the-scenes stuff that people may not know about, what they really are is a symbol, and a symbol to a lot of people. So in 2005, when Pope John Paul, when he passed, over 4 million people came to Rome just to honor him. World leaders from everywhere. And while they were doing that, a gust of wind blew his will wide open during the service. When that happened, look at me, I got chills. I'm not even religious and I got chills. Now, when it happened, reportedly people were shouting, Santo Subito, which means make him a saint now. And it actually helped fast track his canonization, which means making him a saint. After Pope dies, they call in a conclave. Remember from before? I kind of said conclave. Let's kind of get into that. All right. What is a conclave? Well, it's basically like Catholic Survivor meets jury duty at Hogwarts. Just follow me for a second. All right. All the cardinals we talked about earlier, not the birds. Stop thinking about birds. All the cardinals, they go to the Sistine Chapel. You know, the one with the naked babies on the ceiling? And they're literally locked inside. No phones, no visitors, no DoorDash. Oh, whoa. Hey, yeah, right? No. And then they vote up to 4 times a day until someone is picked. What do you need to win? How many votes do you need? You need 2/3 of the vote. So not just over 50%. You need over 66% of the votes, which is way harder to come by. Now, this year, 133 participated in the election. And that's the largest number of cardinals to ever participate in a conclave. The original record was 120 back in 1975. This conclave only lasted 2 days. Historically, the length of a conclave has been all over the place. All right. There was a time in 1268, I wasn't alive yet. 1271, not alive yet. From 1268 to 1271, the conclave lasted that whole time. 3 years. They had to make rules to speed it up. Those dudes was in there for 3 years, not talking to nobody. I guess back in 1268, 1271, they didn't have the DoorDash much, so they're probably fine. They didn't miss no Game of Thrones or no TV shows, right? Yeah, sorry. The 2025 conclave, now it was notable for its record number of cardinal electors. Remember I said 133? They had 133 cardinal electors elect Pope Leo in 2 days. Pope Leo also, by the way, first American pope. How do we know when they pick someone? Do they tweet it out? Do they have a press release? Do you think they send a guy out to a podium and say, I am announcing the newest pope is Pope Leo? Nah, they got the most old school signal system I have ever heard. You see black smoke? They're still arguing. You see white smoke? We got a pope. Right? Kind of cool, right? Why do they use smoke? Well, this goes back to the 13th century. They used smoke because they kind of needed a way to let the public know that the conclave was still progressing. And back in the 13th century, they didn't have no press releases or Twitters and all that stuff. So they had to use the smoke. And the smoke, the way they differentiate it, is they use different chemicals to make one of the smokes black and one of the smokes white. Made it easy to tell the difference. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've been talking for this whole time. All I want to know is, can I be the Pope? Well, let's get into that. Technically, yeah. Almost anybody can be a Pope. But realistically, you ain't going to be Pope. The rules say any baptized Catholic male can be elected pope. So technically, if you're Catholic and you have a pulse, your name is thrown in the mix to be the next pope. But really, the Cardinals have never chosen some random guy in the crowd, right? That'd be fake. That'd be dope. Maybe a cool movie idea. Nah. They always pick from among themselves. Fake. Fake. I'm just joking. Remember that weird stuff we talked about earlier? You want some strange traditions? Let's get some strange traditions, guys. All right. Well, one thing that I found super interesting is every single pope gets a gold ring when they take office. Now, it's called the fisherman's ring. Why the fisherman? Remember earlier when I told you that St. Peter was a fisherman? Well, he was. And he was the first pope. He was literally a fisherman. So it's kind of like a callback to the fishers of men thing. Pretty cool symbolism, if you ask me. Now, the ring is also used to seal official pope documents. When the pope dies, here's the wild part. They smash that ring with a hammer. Smash it. Now, they do it, though, to make sure that nobody fakes any documents using the Pope's old seal. So it makes sense. But honestly, imagine like being the WWE champion and like your championship belt is destroyed when you die. And they just make a new one for the new champ. That's kind of what Cena wants. That's okay, Cena, I see your play. They have a tradition that the Pope used to wear only bright red shoes. The Pope was rocking red bottoms, y'all. Like straight up ruby slippers red. The red was used to symbolize the blood of the early Christians who died for the religion. So it's not really a fashion flex. It's more of a fashion symbol. You know what I'm saying? Francis, the Pope that just died, rest in peace, he nixed that tradition. And he started showing up to Pope events in orthopedic shoes because he's just chill like that. He wanted to be a man of the people, which, from all I've read, he seemed like he really was. It'd be like when your grandpa gave up his fancy red loafers and you finally saw him rocking them old Velcro Skechers. It's still grandpa. He's still blessed. He's just a little bit more comfy now. Moment you've all been waiting for. The Pope-mobile. The Pope-mobile. Now, back in the day, the Pope just kind of rode around on a car, and the car happened to have a chair on it. No seatbelt, no roof, a chair, and vibes. Then came 1981. Pope John Paul II was shot during a parade in St. Peter's Square. He survived. But that's when the Vatican was like, all right, maybe we need windows, doors to the car. You know what I mean? And that's when the Pope-mobile happened. Pope-mobile. Now, the Pope-mobile, bulletproof glass, basically the Pope in a giant box. Sometimes it's electric powered. Want to get weird again? I got a few more weird ones. Remember how I said there's no female cardinals and only a male can be pope? Get this. Pope Joan. All right. A medieval legend says that a woman once disguised herself as a man and accidentally became pope. It was only discovered that she was a woman when she was giving birth mid-procession. Now, historians say it's a myth, but hey, I'm putting it in there. Now, remember Pope Formosus? That one was real. In 897, Pope Stephen dug up the body of the previous pope, Pope Formosus, propped his dead body on the throne, and put him on trial. A literal dead body. Johansi, what would you do? What would you do? He had a deacon answer the questions for the dead body. They found the dead body guilty. They cut off the dead body's fingers. And they threw the dead body in the river. Let's move on. We'll go back to Pope Joan for just 1 second, because as a girl dad, it just rings to my heart. Now, the story goes like this. Sometime in the Middle Ages, a super smart woman had disguised herself as a man, joined the church, did well enough to get promoted all the way to Pope. Now, everything was going fine until she gave birth during the parade. Did it really happen? Probably not. There's zero solid evidence and a lot of reason to think this was made up. Honestly, probably a medieval roast of the church. But it stayed in the rumor vault for centuries, and a lot of people wanted to believe it. As we kind of mentioned earlier too, there have been a few attempts at the Pope's life. Remember 1981 with Pope John Paul? Well, yeah, he was actually shot in St. Peter's Square. He survived. The man even went to the prison and forgave his shooter. Some real like Catholic Batman. Remember Pope Francis? Man, I swear that man make it his own episode. Every time I talk about him, I just get a little like that. This man had 2 attempts on his life. One was a suspected suicide bombing attempt, and he brushed it off, kept moving. Dude's like, I got people to bless. My wife went to Catholic school, so when I told her I was going to do something on the Pope, she got kind of excited. And she asked me if I ever heard of the prophecy of the popes. And as you probably could guess, the answer was no. So I got her to explain it to me a little bit. Let it rip, beautiful.
At the Vatican, there are photos of every pope since the first pope photographed along the building, like the perimeter of the walls. And they have all of them in order up until Pope Francis, and they only have one left that's blank. So there is actually a conspiracy theory, because there is a list of popes that have predicted or said like facts about what pope was going to be when. And so they, prophecy-wise.
Now, where I kind of cut her off at, in the 1500s, there was like a list of 112 short phrases that popped up, and each one supposedly was predicting a future pope. Now, people think it was St. Malachi, but each phrase is really vague. It says something like, glory of the olive, or from the labor of the sun. And people have been retroactively matching the popes up to those phrases, kind of like religious horoscope readers. Now, why is it kind of spooky? Like my beautiful wife said, the last entry ends with a pope called Peter the Roman, who's going to oversee the end of the world. Why are we here? Oh yeah. Can I be pope? Well, technically, yeah. According to the official rules, any baptized male Catholic is eligible to be pope. That's it. No seminary, no bishop badge. Don't even got to make a resume. Just got to be a Catholic, male, and not banned from the church. Yes, but realistically, no. Because the cardinals vote for the new pope. They vote for him within their own group. Always someone already a cardinal or a top bishop. Now, if by some miracle they picked someone outside that group, he'd have to be made a bishop immediately before becoming pope. So if you're not already wearing red robes and getting Vatican mail, you're not getting picked. Like, it's kind of like you can technically win a Grammy with GarageBand. You won't. We've had popes from Italy, from Poland, from Argentina, and now our new pope, Pope Leo, he's from the Chi. He's from the Chi, Chicago, America. So there's a chance that the Pope knows the lyrics to Love Sosa. there's a chance that the Pope has a strong opinion about Sammy Sosa's 1998 home run race. There's a strong chance that the Pope watched the rise and fall of Kanye with all of us too. Right, let's wrap this up and put a bow on it. What is the Pope? He's not God, but he's kind of the CEO of the Catholic Church, except with robes, rituals, and a 2,000-year spiritual family tree, right? You don't run to become Pope. You don't apply to become Pope. The cardinals lock themselves in a room, vote, and send up smoke signals like it's Hogwarts for adults. Also, sorry, you probably can't be Pope either. All right. Sorry. Now, the Pope also, they get a custom ring. Then they get a smasher with a hammer. They get shoes, and they get a bulletproof car. We had maybe a fake female Pope. We had a few assassination attempts. We had a few prophecies linked to the end of the world. We had a Pope die. We had funerals, red robes, a fly in the wine. We had Pope retirements. And we finally answered the question, could I be Pope? Yes. But realistically, no. Say what you will about religion and the stuff that sometimes surrounds it, but guys like Pope Francis are an example of the message and the work matching the ideology. And that gives me hope for the Pope. So, from smoke signals to secret prophecies to shoes with centuries of backstory to the possibility of this being the last Pope ever. And I mean, as someone with no religious affiliations, this one is exactly why the show is necessary. Shout out to Pope Francis. Rest in peace to a great Pope and human. And as always, remember to be who you needed. And also, if you're too afraid to ask, I will. See you next week.